report on the idea of, what sort of financing is out there to implement some of these things that we so often talk about. So Lucian spoke to MOCJ and others about that, and has a bit of a presentation, and then we can quickly go to the West Side Task Force idea, which is something that the board is already on record supporting. But I thought this was an idea to flesh out what we'd like to see in terms of membership of that and purpose of it, and anything else you want to add as more of a detailed understanding in addition to the one we did in the HAT study. So that's the agenda, and hopefully we'll get it through it pretty quickly. So Lucian, do you want me to go first, or do you want to go first? I know Lucian was a little distracted, to say the least, with what was going on.
Yeah,
If you want me to go first, I'm happy to. We can.
Well, Alice, since I definitely want you all to be able to vote on this thing. So let me go and give our people some time. It looks like, let me just double check the attendee section. See if anybody else. Justine. I can get started on the funding overview.
So
hello, everybody.
Don't forget to put a welcome to everyone. Environmental Protection Committee. Sorry for the date change. That should have been given to you a long time ago, but somehow we all managed to not see that early enough. So my apologies. It's the 18th. I'm Alice Blank, chair of the committee, with Wendy Chapman, co-chair. Lucian Reynolds, district manager, is going to report on some financing ideas for resiliency measures in New York that he's discussed with various agencies, just to sort of remind us of how we might be paying for some of these plans. So that's first up. And thanks, Lucian.
Sure thing, Alice. So I want to talk about the different ways that resiliency is financed here. We all know that probably the most in-depth discussion of financing in our neck of the woods is and I'm seeing Justine, I smile a little bit because I know it's got to be the Battery Park City Authority. The Battery Park City Authority is able to issue bonds. It's given the authority by the state of New York, and was given special authority to sub bonds for the purposes of constructing resiliency projects inside and somewhat outside of its jurisdiction. That is a very special case in the bigger scheme of things for the city of New York. There's lots of other funding sources that have to be tapped because we cannot subsist on a bonding authority alone. And besides, there has not been, as of yet, a single authority that's been tapped to do bonds for the city of New York. But we will talk a little bit about what that could look like. But first, let me talk a little bit about what MOCEJ has already identified as funding sources for resiliency for FIDE Seaport. This is directly from their master plan, which, in talking with Jordan Salinger yesterday, this is a plan that will certainly be updated, especially the funding sources section. You'll see there's a couple little notes here that say, we don't know yet what this is going to look like. We don't know if it's going to pass, things like that, where we know now that, some of these sources have actually come to fruition, and we're certainly very interested to see how the money will be made available and if it'll be made available at scale. And that's the biggest, I think, question for us is, what is the scale? Because the city of New York exists at such a wildly different scale and everything it does than any other city in the country, that some of these programs, while the amount of money, the pots of money may be large, may not even be worthwhile pursuing by the city, because the juice isn't worth the squeeze, so to speak. So I want to this is the last part of the master plan. This has just been broken out, and I just want to show you, because everything I have here, you all have access to. So There's nothing here that I have that you haven't seen before, but I just want to kind of laser point you to what's been held up to me as being the main um, sources of interest, at least for the MOCEJ. But we'll also kind of look to see, as the city has potentially a part to play and a locally preferred alternative for the Army Corps of Engineers future plans. We'll also have to, draw from a similar bank of monies to support those efforts as well, depending on what the city and the state's portion of it end up being. Because we all can agree that um, while the Army Corps of Engineers currently preferred alternative may get the job done, it's certainly there's certainly a lot that we would prefer it change in very significant ways, which may force us to foot some of the bill. So starting the FEMA programs, particularly the Building Resilient Infrastructure Communities, the BRIC program. Um, Typically, it's up to a 550 million per grant. Now, this is a place where there's actually some ability for the federal government to expand the maximum award, and this is one thing that MOCEJ is trying to do, and that is take that award from 50 million to 200 million. That would be a very important sea change in what they can do and how much money will be on the table for them. So that's just, I want to call that out right now and alert you all that that's something that we really need to focus on. $150 million is a big yield.
Can you
And
can you just review that for one more second? Because I
sure.
remember when we had the public hearing with the congressman, um, uh, Jordan at MOCJ mentioned that to me and asked that we lobby for that. I mean, I'm not sure I understand. What is it that he was that? In other words, we're looking to simply ask the federal government for more money because right now they only give up to 50 million. It was a little unclear to me what he
Yeah.
meant by that.
So I'm just pulling up my notes here. So the so what they're saying is that more specifically for this grant, every August the awards go out, and then in the fall the new applications go out for everyone to apply. Um, what's necessary is to lobby FEMA to do an internal guidance change, and if they change their internal guidance, they can direct the funding arm of the organization to increase the funding cap from 50 million to up to $200 million. So right now the cap for the funding is at 50 million because, for the most part they have found that maybe that's a reasonable amount of money. But if the need emerges for a very worthy program, then certainly it's I think worth their consideration to do so. But um, that's going to take some politics, and whether or not it's an act of Congress or just simple, like calling the administrators and getting them on the phone and having meetings with them and talking about the importance of it and what it could unlock, I am not certain. But either way, we know what the drill is on our end. We can certainly, direct all of our federal elected officials to support that effort if we so choose. So that's what I think Jordan was looking for.
Thanks.
Yeah. So um, now I'm just going to go. They break it out very nicely, and so I have that kind of highlighted. So what are the next steps? So we talked about the BRIC grants, and so that's the other good thing about these is that there's a very generous federal local split. So the feds will pay 75% of the project cost. This is kind of approaching Federal Highway Act of 1954, and it's the closest thing to free money that we're going to get at this scale. So it's a very generous award. Um, some other programs, the capital investment grant for the ferry transportation. This comes out of the fixed guideway transit capital investments. And so that could be a very large award. they could request up to 100 million plus. And this would really focus on the ferry elements of the plan. So we saw that as part of the vision, there was a purpose-built ferry building. I think this is a really good um, portrait painted of how projects change according to what the funding sources are. Um, with the Federal Highway Act, I always kind of go back to that. Um, the money was so generous that states were willing to build highways just for the economic multiplier effect of a flood of federal dollars employing local citizens. And for our needs to kind of pencil everything out, um, you look at these pots of money and say, well, if we include a large transportation portion of it, some amount of this program will be covered by this very generous grant. So I think that the recognition that the amount of money that's available will paint the picture of how it's stitched together is instructive, and looking to see how they put this together. Um, the other one, funding for surface transportation, infra and raise grants. The Infrastructure for Rebuilding America grant program is a federal program managed by the US DOT, and this is highway and freight projects. So the pool is 1 billion, but the maximum grant size is set at 25 million, and this looks like it could be used for FDR Drive viaduct improvements. So that's just another part of the puzzle. This is something else that I think you were talking about earlier, the New York State Environmental Bond Act. Now, this is one of the examples where the status at the publishing of this report, this was still just a kind of glimmer in New York State's eye, and now this has been passed, and we're looking to see um, how the grant program could positively impact New York City and Lower Manhattan. Um, this is the next part that um, I am going to use to transition over to talking about bonds. This part is insurance surcharge. Insurance surcharge is a fee assessed on premiums related to select insurance policy lines, such as property, title, and casualty, calculated as a percentage of the premium. The surcharge on the insurance premiums could create a dedicated revenue source to raise funds for resiliency projects and be a naturally progressive, as the surcharge amount is tied to the value of the insured property or covered policyholder. So this is likely something that's applied to properties that are at risk of flooding. So in a sense, those who would be benefiting um, most greatly from the infrastructure investment would be, in a way, um, contributing towards the cost of the capital investment of these resiliency um, uh, infrastructure upgrades. So the line that I want to really alert you to is down here. It's in green. It can potentially raise up to 31 million in 2021 dollars annually towards the project. Now, the reason why I think that's so important is a um, reliable annual um, funding source is the stuff that bonds are made of. And I want to take that and transition over to the Department of Environmental Protection as the best example of a active municipal bonding authority. So we know DEP as the agency that bills us for the water. And it's not just DEP, but it's the Municipal Water Finance Authority. This is a bond authority that um, leases all of the water infrastructure to the DEP to manage on their behalf. So this is the authority that owns all of the pipes and water systems and reservoirs and water treatment plants, and the DEP manages all that on its behalf. The DEP is what's known as a non-tax levied agency. It is not uh, uh, reliant on the annual um, budget negotiations. And so this is something I just kind of want to dive into a little bit. So what we're looking at here is the statements that they put out when they are um, floating bonds. And so it's essentially what an investor would be reading about if they want to learn about how this fits into the municipal infrastructure, how it's financed, who's doing the work, and so on and so forth. Um, the the really important bits of information. Um, the authority is a public benefit corporation duly created and existing under the New York City Municipal Water Finance Authority Act, as amended. The New York City Water Board is a public benefit corporation created and existing under state law, and so it's an act of the state to permit this to exist. So we need the state to be involved for the city to create some sort of bonding authority for the city. Um, this section here talks about the lease between um, the authority and DEP. Moving down, the rate covenant. So the board has covenanted the agreement to establish, fix, revise, and collect rates, fees, and charges for the use of or the services furnished by the system. Um, so this is essentially gives the authority the ability to set the charges for the water in order to recoup or to create a funding stream for the bonds. And so depending on what they need to raise money for, the water charge rates are set appropriately. It talks about the authority, the purposes and powers. A lot of this we just kind of went over, but I just want to show you that this is all spelled out, and it's I can send this around to everyone as highlighted. Here's the member of the boards of directors. You'll recognize a lot of these names. One particular is Rohit Agarwala, and that's the commissioner of DEP, among others. Let's see right here. Just again,
Can you go
the
back
board.
to that slide again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And just a little bit about DEP. So altogether, I just want to paint this picture here. Um, the city is involved in floating bonds based on an expected income. So for this authority, it's the water fees that everyone pays for. Water is something that every New Yorker uses, and they all pay in some way or another, whether it's bundled in the rents or they actually pay their broken out water bill, or if there's something their co-op pays on their behalf. So it's the cost is borne by all New Yorkers in that way. For infrastructure, um, there has to be able to bond for it, there has to be some sort of recurring fee. To also put it in perspective, the idea behind a congestion charge is that the tolls that are set up, it will create an expected amount of revenue upon which the MTA will sell bonds and be able to make a down payment on whatever capital upgrades that they have in their plan. So that's the mindset I want to kind of get everyone in. But a lot is going to uh, much may change with the next version of this master plan and the documents that we see from MOCEJ. So I want to really have everyone, once they issue an update to this report, we should really take a look here and see if anything has changed in these funding buckets. We should look to see if when the state budget is finalized, there may be some surprises for us in terms of funding sources. Perhaps there'll be some specifics as to for the Environmental Bond Act, which part, how much will be going to resiliency, things like that. So with that, Alice, that concludes my presentation to you all.
Well, that's really Terrific. Certainly the tip of that question, is iceberg for me. I mean, I have a million questions, which I don't necessarily think you're gonna have to be able to answer. I'm sure others also, but so what, this is a dumb question likely, but which, if any, of what you've described, I've counted 6 funding areas are city related? I mean, DEP is one, right? The insurance, I mean, I'm just kind of, can you just go through and just identify, you've got federal, state, and city, certainly the FEMA CAP grant, BRIC grant, the ferry transportation, I understand is
Yeah,
FEMA
so there's
funding,
the DOT, the federal DOT monies.
right,
So there's the surface transportation
that's federal.
grant,
Mhm.
or fixed guideways is another one that's also federal. Um, there's let's see. So they identified the fixed guideway transit capital investments, the surface transportation investments, and then the state. The big one they identified was the Environmental Bond Act.
That's right.
It seems like it's pretty bare and sparse outside of that, in terms of big money. Because again, these little grants, 5 million, 10 million, aren't going to cut it. They just kind of have been. But what I'm hearing is that it's almost not even worth going for them because they need bigger caps.
Well, let me open it up to others. Does anyone have questions or points they want to clarify or anything?
Whoa.
Okay, Wendy, why don't you start us off?
Thanks, Lucian. This is really great. I think one of the things that it's just more of a comment, but on the east side, I mean, maybe Lucian, you know this or someone else. I think what my understanding from multiple questions to, everyone in the know is that in New York City right now, it roughly costs $1 billion per mile for resiliency. That's what on the east side, what they're actually building right now comes out to be about $1 billion per mile. And, it's understandable because it's really complicated in New York City of what's underground and, the sewers and everything else. But when I read through all the things that Lucian just presented, other than, maybe we can issue our own bonds, figuring out a new revenue source, nothing comes close to how many miles do we have? I forget, is it, a shoreline, is it,
520.
yeah, I mean, it's a lot of shoreline. And if that's $1 billion per mile, and then of course, that wonderful talk that you shared with us today, my takeaway from him is that all the projections are more conservative than reality. Everything's worse. So, I really, and oh, by the way, it's my birthday today. So everyone can wish me a happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Wendy.
I'm in a birthday spiral of like, oh shit, the whole world's just gonna go so I'm trying really hard to be like, the world, it's the world as we know it, not, is, and I feel fine. That's the moment I am today after reading all the stuff you sent. So anyway,
God, Wendy, I feel forever. I'm going to need to take you for a drink, a birthday drink after that. Well, congratulations, Wendy. I'm glad you shared that with us.
So it's just, that's my funny, dark humor that's going through my brain tonight. So thanks, everyone.
Levity, much appreciated. Well, okay. Jeff.
Sorry, I had a hard time unmuting. I've made this point at past meetings, but I'm not sure where it goes. And if you look at these numbers that Lucian put up, and I opened up a version of that report, so I'm looking at that same table again. Clearly, the largest single funding source is the Army Corps of Engineers. And my reading of this table is that this is money that would be potentially available for FIDI Seaport, not for resiliency in New York City, but FIDI Seaport. And the number put next to Army Corps of Engineers is $3 billion. Now, that doesn't pay for that project, but it's the single largest source. And so my question is, to what extent can we leverage that? We don't have to have the Army Corps design, in my view, whatever the remedy is, as long as FEMA would approve it as part of resiliency. Maybe the Army Corps is only going to contribute up to the amount of money that they would do, that would cost to build their preferred plan, which, as we've seen from diagrams, is pretty bare bones. It'll give us resiliency, but not much else. And I think it makes sense to explore, and maybe the powers that be within MOCJ are already doing this, but to explore to what extent can the master plan, speaking here of FIDI Seaport, be coordinated with the HATS study recommendations and grab that $3 billion or whatever it is. We still need more money, but it's a shame to let that just sit on the table.
I agree, Jeff, and I think that was something we were hoping to hear from MOCJ, Jordan specifically on that. And I sent around for all of you the MOCJ's comments on the HATS. And in that, they specify that that's something they don't specify the financing, but they specify their interest in working with and, such. So I think that's a great follow-up, and we should make sure we do follow up. So, yeah, that will definitely be the sort of follow-up to this meeting, which is getting some of the agencies here to talk further about financing specifics, including, I see Justine here, Battery Park City Authority, all the players. And I still am a little lost where OMB and the controller's office interface with all of this. Like, I don't know if anyone can answer that, but, at what point are they involved, if at all, in reviewing this kind of expenditure? So anyway, I throw that out there as well. Another follow-up, I guess. Anyone can jump in if they have an answer to any of those questions or more ways to illuminate. Oh. Okay. Okay, Justine.
Thanks so much. I guess my question is more, with all the funding that's out there, who else can put their hand out and say, pay me? I mean, you've got is this federal money that's maybe even just allocated to New York City, or is this what's available, period, for the whole country? We know?
Period.
Period, that's what I was
It's
afraid of.
competitive. Yeah.
Competitive
it's not
bidding and
competitive
applying,
bids,
so
yeah.
we're nowhere near paying for this. Wow.
What I was speaking to is the HAT study throws out a price tag of $52 billion. And that study does not contemplate that FIDI Seaport is going to be built by anybody other than themselves.
Okay.
So whatever they were proposing, and for that matter, it doesn't even include Battery Park City or because they only included projects that had actually started at the time of the report. And then they excluded them from their proposal. So that price tag includes whatever they thought was necessary to give resiliency to Lower Manhattan outside of to Lower Manhattan, basically, period. So if we build it ourselves, we should still grab that money. I mean, if they coordinate, if the local authorities coordinate with the Army Corps of Engineers, we should be able to get that money. Now, remember, that money is not sitting on the table waiting to be taken either. That would have to be part of the congressional authorization in 2024. If I think it was 2024, in order for it to be available at any time within our lifetimes. But it's not as if there's only the number of 3 billion here that's on this chart. It's not like that 3 billion has to go around the country. There is a price tag that the Army Corps is going to give to Congress for giving resiliency to New York City. And we should try to get our fair share of that that's applicable to Manhattan. my point.
I see. I mean, yes, definitely going for our fair share, that makes sense, but that does add color. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Carrie?
Oh, thank you. I just took my hand down because I think Jeff covered most of what I was going to say. Just, in light of the price tag, even if it's, the way they split up that 52 is, 65, 35 federal, non-federal. So it's 34 billion that the feds say that they'll cover. So then the question is, when you take a look at that table, you've got to divvy between the Fed and the non-Fed partners to figure out how much of the 34 you can get them to pay for. And, even with getting 200 million from the BRIC request, we're nowhere near that amount. So, where do we put pressure or, not that we're lobbyists, but, where do we put pressure on our elected officials to really take this up in a serious manner? You know, and how do we empower our representatives to be very capable at securing it?
That really puts it well. I mean, that's really what this meeting was about, was trying to figure that out so we could start to do just what you're saying via resolution and all the other, impactful things we do here. But I guess I would ask you all who you would like to see. I mean, obviously, we would have to have the mayor's office give a little bit more of a firm understanding of a lot of these questions. But do you have other folks that you think would be helpful in answering this? This is to the group. And Lucian?
I mean, obviously our congressional, Goldman and Nadler, and Gillibrand and
Schumer.
are federal reps. And I think we need to make sure that they are in the loop with all of these discussions with the city people so that I'm sure they would want to go to bat for us, but we need to make sure that they're going, in a coordinated way.
Yeah, I wasn't so much talking about who would be approached as advocates, but rather who would be approached to be clear on the information in terms of what it is that we have and don't have and what really is available. It's still not clear to me, certainly. This is just the beginning of the question, but I wouldn't think it's that complex, and I can't seem to get a handle on it, though I admittedly personally haven't spent a lot of time on it. I know, we're beginning this search, and I can't thank Lucian enough for having started us off. Laura?
Well, I would like to understand the insurance question more, because really, like we're talking about the billions of dollars to spend for the protection, but it's saving billions of dollars in destruction. Like, think of the destruction that Sandy did, and we're talking about, the future of some of the most expensive real estate in the world down here. And, the benefit risk of doing this is completely in our favor in terms of the investment. So I just, well, I'm sure that that Jordan and his team have been thinking about this all the time. So if they haven't figured it out, I doubt that we're going to figure it out. But anyway, it does seem like somewhere in risk analysis, the benefit risk, you would think there would be some money to be had.
Okay, I see Jeff's hand. Oh, a lot of hands up there. Thanks, Laura. Richard Corman. Hi. Can you guys put your cameras on unless you're sort of really unable? It's always.
It says mine is on, but
You are, Laura. You're looking terrific.
You're on,
Yes, you're there.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I just have to say, first of all, Lucia, this is a great start. I hate to say it, but all this information just sort of makes my head spin even more than it might have been before. But it does give us an opportunity here to start to think about this, which we need to do. There's no question about it. But one thing that I don't think you mentioned were the new federal bills, because when we talk about the kind of money that we're really needing to focus on here, it's got to start there, I think. And so, Lucian, have you or the city started to consider the recent infrastructure bills and the inflation reduction bills and how any of that could possibly apply to the things we've got to do here?
Yeah, I think one of the, it's not called out really well. Let me go back here. I mean, one of the programs that was put under DOT, I think is partially funded by one of the infrastructure acts, the bipartisan infrastructure bill. But in terms of the Inflation Reduction Act money, I'm unclear if that is going to create I don't know exactly the timing when this was written versus the Inflation Reduction Act. It may be that there's possibly some money available there, but when this went to press, that was because that happened so quickly. Um, so maybe we'll see something in the next revision of this. But I'm looking right now to see because I seem to recall that this was the result of the bipartisan infrastructure bill. Um, yeah. Um,
While you're looking, let me just make
yeah.
one comment, and this is um, just please take it for what it's worth. This is observational and not necessarily factual. But my sense, and this is from sort of dealing with some other big ticket items that we've been focusing on, like Five World Trade Center, for example, my sense is that we're talking about such big money that the solution is not going to be one place, even for any particular project. It's going to be piecing together cleverly, seeing how a particular project could tap into multiple sources of funding, which is really so it's going to take a considerable amount of thought and work on each one of these things, and probably a lot of creativity. So who does that, how that gets done, I'm not sure, but it's clearly for us here in, like we said, the big city, this is not going to be a simple matter.
Yeah, I agree, Richard, and I just want to let you know that it is in that report, but it's all speculative. That they say that it's they don't know exactly. Although more details on the program to be funded, eligibility, and final amounts remain uncertain, the proposed programs represent potentially substantial sources of funding for the project. We don't know for sure how that has manifested as of this point.
I guess one last comment is, as you walk through each of these, most of them have a local component, and that in and of itself is going to create some complication, because we have to find obviously not matching, but a percentage of funds. So we're going to be needing to deal with all of our elected officials across the board, right down to probably to, city council, to find funding during the various funding cycles that are out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good
Not
point.
sure if any of that's helpful, but I just thought I'd share.
No, I think this is just a moment to sort of, review the basic concept of financing these plans. So I think it is helpful. Jeff,
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on the local funding, and Laura touched on it with the insurance surcharge. And the chart that Lucian showed us, there were two, what I would characterize as kind of potentially hyper local contributions. One is the insurance surcharge, which based on the table looks like would be a surcharge on those people whose flood insurance would otherwise go down as a result of the resiliency measures. In other words, the people that would be in the floodplain in Lower Manhattan, Battery Park City, Seaport area, Tribeca, and so forth. And then there's something called a resiliency assessment, which is basically described in the table as kind of a special assessment on Lower Manhattan to help pay for these projects. And together, these come up with $60 million annually, which when you multiply by a lot of years is a lot of money. There is some element of fairness in making people who benefit kind of immediately, most immediately from a infrastructure measure, pay some additional surcharge. But when you get to an area like Manhattan, that's really treacherous ground because we're not protecting Lower Manhattan from resiliency. So a handful of condo owners in Tribeca and Battery Park City can decrease their flood insurance. We're if that's all that were at stake, the policymakers would probably say, well, let it flood. We're protecting Lower Manhattan because it is a cultural and economic engine really for the whole country. And so that justifies taxpayer money from the whole country, taxpayer money from the state, taxpayer money from the city at large in paying for these kinds of projects. And so I would just indicate a level of caution to the extent that we advocate for these hyper local sources of financing, because that's us for one thing. Whether it's the building owner, the condo owner, the business owner, collectively it's us downtown that would be assessed specially for these measures. And although, as I said, there's an element of fairness to that, but the appropriate level of special assessment is a very tricky calculation because the benefits extend far beyond the direct benefits of an office management company, a corporate headquarters. I mean, if we're going to flood, Goldman Sachs would move elsewhere. It's not that there's plenty of places these people can move rather than pay for $1 billion in resiliency. So just an element of caution in advocating for hyper-local sources of revenue.
Yeah, I suspect a lot of people would be arguing that the other way. But okay, Rosa.
Thank you. Yeah, can you hear me? Just wanted to say that the issue is that the federal funding wouldn't actually, just responding to Jeff's comment, it wouldn't actually cover 100% of the cost. It's a percentage of the total cost. So we do have to come up with some version of other sources of funding to cover what's left over that the Fed number doesn't cover. I think the other issue with the Fed money that's on the table right now and that's available for us to apply for is that, Lucian, correct me if I'm wrong, but don't they need some level of planning already to have been done to qualify for the federal funding that's available at the moment? And the Army Corps of Engineer plans haven't even barely started designing it, which is problematic. And what they have designed, we all hate and don't think is livable. So, I basically am tossing out stuff that isn't particularly helpful towards getting us to a livable resiliency plan. But there are just so many hurdles. It's really terrifying, actually, especially given the craziness of our weather, even recently swinging back and forth. It just makes it feel so much more urgent that we address it as quickly as possible. I think that the reason why certain plans are able to get funding is because they are essentially shovel ready, right? Because the Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice, or EDC, have already been able to get them to the point where they now qualify for federal funding. But the larger scale plan, I don't think we're there yet. So sorry, just my depressing 2 cents.
Poor
Sorry.
Wendy on her birthday has to inherit yet another. Yeah, I mean, I think
And happy birthday, Wendy.
that's certainly all, yeah, well stated. Sobering as it is. Sarah, or did you put your hand down?
put my hand down. I'm depressed because I will not be alive when this gets built.
Well, I think this entire checkerboard here on the screen is going to have a similar result. But okay. I see somebody with a hand, but oh, it's Lucian. Sorry, Lucian, go ahead.
Thank you, Alice. Oh, I'm sorry, Nico, please be quiet. So one of the,
You're gonna be in trouble.
all right, hold on. Okay, sorry about that. My son is making funny noises next to me. Um, I think it's important to definitely discuss what sort of recurring, funding may be available to back bonds. And it may be that the insurance surcharge may not be the best, but I do think that this committee is uniquely suited to, brainstorm what some other funding sources could be for such bonds. And so I definitely encourage everyone to put their thinking caps on because, to many other people's points, the federal money is not going to cover the entire program, not even close. And the city and the state are going to have to collectively come up with an enormous amount of money and more than it possibly can in any short, number of years of budget cycles. And so bonding will surely be an incredibly necessary tool. And the question is, if you want to get a good bond rate, you're going to have to back them with something that investors will feel strongly about. And so it's something that's, it's certainly on my mind in thinking about this, but you all being Lower Manhattan residents may have ideas on what could be a fair, reliable funding stream for a 30-year bond.
Laura, thanks, Lucian.
Well, one thing, that has been really kind of troubling me since Sandy was our inability to get the Alliance for Downtown New York to come to the table as a player in this question, because they represent all these landlord and real estate interests, which I realize now are severely handicapped by this, by the COVID and recession and their vacancy rates and all of that. But still, they have a huge amount of real estate at stake. And, when I've talked to the Alliance about it, they've said, well, we don't want to play up the flood risk to our landlords. We don't want them leaving Lower Manhattan, so we just kind of push it under the rug, essentially. But I actually think there's so much knowledge there. I mean, this is, one of the major financial capitals of the world. And I don't know, like maybe we should bring in somebody who sells bonds from Goldman Sachs or some of these landlords, like people who really are in the real estate business and the bond business, and brainstorm with them.
I think that's a great idea.
It's a really great idea. Trust me, they can figure out how to make money.
Yeah, but I do think that hearing the voice of REBNY and, real estate is critical. In fact, it came up when just thinking about what we would write in our resolution on the West Side Resiliency Task Force, who's going to be a member. It's very nice to say it's only going to be community board and the stakeholders of agencies, but in fact, you probably do need that very voice of, those in the know in the world of real estate and finance.
Yeah, you do. I mean, like I do projects for the city and, the public sector, and I do work for developers. The developers are so smart. Like they really know how to get stuff done and they're clever about financing. I mean, there's no reason in a city like New York we're not taking advantage of this brain trust to help, to tap into the private sector's brain trust to help with this.
I agree. And I know in the last presentation where Tom Fox talked about the success of the Hudson River Park, part of it was due to those very folks who were on,
Exactly.
according to him, on the Conservancy board at the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good point. All right. Well, this definitely has a big follow-up potential. Anybody else? Okay, I think that's it. Lucian.
Allison, one last thing I'll mention is that they did talk about the income that would be drawn from having some sort of real estate development tie-in with resiliency. and the conclusion was that it's most likely that any funds that would come from that development would only be safe to use for operations and maintenance, and not towards the financing of long-term bonds. So that's just one kind of
I think
additional.
they're really short-sighted about that. I have to say, like, when we were working on the Big U and we went to speak with one of the major developers, and I was with the mayor, it was called MOR at the time. And like, they were building on the waterfront, I won't say where, but squarely in the floodplain with unsurpassed views. And the city didn't ask them for anything, and it's like, really? I just don't understand it. I think we should push to be more aggressive about this.
I 100% agree, Laura. There should be land use costs. You get to build in these areas, you have to pay for it.
Like
And
waterfront window tax. Like Central Park has a window tax because you're looking at the park.
it's a really, yeah. I mean, so who would you think, Laura, we should invite to sort of follow up on that?
On like
The imposition of land use costs and as part of resilience building costs on the private sector.
I don't know. I have to think about it. I don't want
Should
to
we,
put it
should we
out
look to
for public
Reggie?
record. What?
Yeah, Reggie would, well, is he still
Still
vice
Rebney, I think.
president of Rebney now? Yeah, right. He's got a big job. Yeah, I think that's a great idea to follow up with him. Yeah. Okay, Rosa.
Thank you. I was wondering if we should talk to or invite the EDC person who actually is responsible for writing all of the federal funding proposals, because EDC is reputed to have a very, very strong success rate for their applications. Maybe they would be able to help us figure out, how it all works, and what the limitations are and how much we need to find from other places and all of that other stuff.
Excellent idea. I see Sarah giving you applause over here. Yeah, that's another good one. Well, maybe we just spend one more minute here just for other folks that you'd like invited to have this kind of more granular discussion on the financing for resiliency projects in Lower Manhattan. Any other thoughts on that? Okay.
It just the one thing is that I still don't know if I totally understand what the governor and the city, like how those two offices, lobby together. I mean, I'm not sure. It's more of a general question, but you know what I'm saying? I would love to, that more brainstorming with them to say what they have ideas about what they're lobbying for. And, just in terms of even this little thing in terms of what we should be getting behind, sometimes we don't know what we should be supporting.
I think we need some sort of West Side task force.
Yeah, well, exactly. No, that's true.
Interesting segue. Nice going, Lucian. Well done.
Well done.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and to Wendy, you had written an email that gave a great suggestion of having, a kind of follow up on the mayor's office and the state DEC's review of the HAT study. It's kind of in tandem with that maybe we could ask for, a more detailed information on both what they thought of the study and how it was going to be paid for. So I like that idea. I've already spoken to Lucian about inviting folks, whoever that might be, to something. So I think we can tie this into a bigger meeting. Got Carrie. Yeah. Wait, McCarrie, you're.
Sorry, I meant that to be an applause for that idea, and not to raise my hand. I hit the wrong button. But I think Wendy's suggestion is excellent. I do think we could learn a lot from the mayor's office in how they address some of the HAT study comments. And then if they would be willing to go through that chart and give us an update on what their efforts are to secure money in each of those buckets, that would probably help us not only understand what they're trying, but where they've maybe found some obstacles, or what they think is, sort of a live lead and what things aren't worth pursuing and why.
Yeah, I think that's great. And so, Lucian, we've talked about that, I guess, I think it was today or maybe it was last week. I
Yeah.
can't lose track. But anyway, so we will definitely follow up on that. I think that's a great way to, just get more information. So thanks, Wendy, on that one. Richard.
I would like to think that the city controller, that Brad Lander and his office have been thinking about this and looking at the various sources, and clearly they have a great lot of experience in the bond world. So I think that an invitation to that office would be good too.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned earlier. I think so
All right.
too. Absolutely. Yeah. And the OMB. I don't, it's a little gray as to exactly what role they do play, frankly, in financing many things like the jail, for example. How these things get approved and how the money is funneled through these agencies is just as a general concept, at least very opaque to me and maybe to others. So I think that's a great idea, Richard. Thanks. Okay. So I think we'll leave this, Lucian, in your lap to follow up with a number of the folks we've mentioned. So at this point,
thing.
it's, just to repeat, the Controller's Office, OMB, Downtown Alliance, MOCEJ, DEC, and EDC. Just a few, maybe it's not all one meeting, but I think the first meeting of the idea of just getting, having MOCJ talk about their HAT study with DEC, if they can both come, and the funding, I think that would be a really great beginning. So let's work for that, maybe even as early as next month. If we can get the two agencies to respond, that would be a great one. And I think it does segue nicely to our second item on the agenda, which is the task force. I just want to, okay. I don't think I have any visuals for that, but so you all recall that when we wrote the HAT study comments, we, at the end of it, commented that we were supportive of this idea of a task force that looked holistically at the situation on the West Side. We didn't specify a lot of things in that, so this is an opportunity to go further in what we'd like to have as a task force. Who would be a member, who would, what are the goals, who would be, what kind of governance it might have. And I listed a few specific things. So I did think that this is not about what we want to see on the West Side, just to be clear. This is about what we want to see as a task force to address the issues of infrastructure resiliency and environmental related challenges on the West Side. So with that, I think we would want to start with the history, and I did send along to all of you a terrific history that about where this began. And I had there was a lot I learned from that, and I would encourage you, if you haven't had a chance to read it, and I'm sorry I sent it so late, a little bit of the history. Tom Fox, I think, did a great job in telling us about where the West Side Task Force actually began, which is in 1986. Who knew? And that was formed by Governor Cuomo and Mayor Koch. And it was to have this new vision for Manhattan's West Side. And it was born after the Westway, which was a controversial Army Corps proposal to, for landfill of over 200 acres along the West Side. Now, a lot of us here are old enough to remember that, but some not, but that is where it was born. And as we saw so beautifully during his presentation, what became of it was quite wonderful. So I asked Tom actually to give me an outline of some of the things he thought should be included in a task force. And so I will share just a few of his points, and this can be used as a sort of basis for whereases or such in this resolution. But I think he had mentioned, well, first of all, I would like to include that we have the history, as I've just, sort of focused on a little bit, as well as the recent history. Why do we need a task force now? Well, it's obvious in Superstorm Sandy. So many of you on this committee remember that we've been pushing for some kind of coverage of the West Side since 2012. We were promised interim measures on the West Side, never saw them. And the only permanent measures were those that were considered by the Army Corps, which of course we've only just now seen. and this for many has provided a great deal of unhappiness. And so all the more reason to look at this holistically for all the reasons that we've enumerated previously, which is basically to allow that the city, state, and federal agencies involved with making Lower Manhattan resilient work together, and specifically in this area. So some of the things that Tom mentioned was, I'll mention what he said were in his mind, the goals were finding a consensus on a framework or guiding principles for moving forward that involved all stakeholders to agree with regard to proposed infrastructure improvements. Subsequent to establishing the principles, planning and budgeting could begin for individual elements designed to maximize protection and benefits to the public as it minimizes the cost required by spreading it across a variety of funding sources. Well, that's second to the actual finding a guiding principles in a task force, I think is what he was trying to say. He was very clear that for governance, he felt strongly that you would really need the mayor and governor to establish and empower any group and to make it work. And that's what had happened in the case of his experience with the first task force from the 80s. I researched who were the past members, and it was really interesting. I think that was sent in one of the articles to you. In fact, I know it was. And you had there were 22 members. They met over the course of a little under 6 months. So there was a time frame here, which I thought was very interesting that Tom also spoke about. And they had everyone from the panel lead, who was Arthur Levitt Jr., who was at the time the chair of the American Stock Exchange, to Laura's point of having, the voice of finance, to Roberta Gratz, who's a fantastic professor of planning. And you name it, there were everybody from David Dinkins, who was then the Manhattan Borough president, who played a major role in support of this, and Department of Transportation and EDC and the whole litany of folks that are all sorts of members of all the obvious agencies, but quite a number of people from the business community. And then you had, about 4 or 5 representatives from the community, which I think is something that obviously we would feel very strongly about. We had the chairman of the city planning department as part of this task force, and the chairman of the commissioner of DEP, and all of these folks that we probably would advocate for now were the past members of the earlier task force. And so let's see if he had any other words of wisdom to impart here before we get started on what else we'd like to include, or if we want to include any of this. In terms of leadership, I asked about that. He said someone who has support of the governor and the mayor, knows the political ropes, and has influence and access to financial resources, which can make things happen. A belief that the governor and mayor can bend all stakeholders to work together to fulfill a common cause. He felt that for timing, so there should be a beginning and end to a task force like this, with 1 year, he felt would be adequate. And with financing, I asked about that. He said it was originally funded by the Port Authority with Cuomo's influence at the time, but that would no longer really be available to us. And that he said that the city and state could help identify appropriate funding sources for this research phase. And he estimated 2.5 million for the revised West Side infrastructure sort of planning would be considered, quote unquote, chump change, and that the funding could come from federal infrastructure improvements, DEP bonding for the infrastructure to finance the New York City water system, which Lucian's just talked about. And I think that was pretty much it. So, and then what to be studied in the task force is the other question we want to answer, which is, comprehensive planning for the West Side needed before the implementation of any resiliency measures to review sewage and drainage systems and Route 9A traffic, bike path, pedestrian traffic flow, etc. So those were the items that he noted, which I thought was helpful. And I guess what I would say is maybe we want to take it topic by topic, and Lucian taking notes as to what you'd like to have included in the resolution, if anything, in addition to what some of the points that were just raised that I agree with Tom, but you may not, and we can remove them. So let's just talk about the history. I think that would be a whereas area, just to describe the history. I don't think there's anything there. Are there other goals that you'd like to see achieved, in the creation of a task force? Wendy.
So the one thing that I really appreciated when we got that presentation was the unfinished business. And, for me, it goes down to the health of the combined sewer overflow problems that are, all of that's flowing into the river. And as we know, the duration and rainfall is even more. So there's probably going to be more horrible things going into the river. And one of the articles that you sent was saying start in the river and move in terms of thinking about how to solve the problem. So, I think that one of the reasons we want to form this task force is that the wall is ugly, but I think that we should be looking at it also in terms of, how do you, what happened with the last project that didn't get finished, and that's the combined sewer overflow. And a lot of the length of the, I think one of the other articles you sent was saying that it was a 50-year life for the road and for West Street, and it's coming on the end of the 50 years. So there's you need to rethink about the road, and you need to finish the combined sewer overflow. And, these are more infrastructure things, plus the wall that we need, or the resiliency that we need, if that makes sense. Because I think the sewer system makes sense today, right now, that it's a problem today. And that makes it more urgent. Because I have to say, I still feel like many people I talk to think that we have all the time in the world to build a wall, that, they're not thinking this is as urgent as many of us feel like it is.
Yeah, those are great points, Wendy, and we'll definitely, I think we'll just make a list of the things that we would want to have a task force review. So certainly the combined sewer overflow, certainly West Street. Are there other items that I didn't mention or Wendy hasn't mentioned that, obviously resiliency measures? And just to remind you, this actually didn't get born out of the Army Corps' hideous wall aspect of, remember, this task force actually originally was started well before that, when we simply had no idea what was happening on the west side. So it goes back long before that. Rosa.
I just wanted to bring up that there are actually planning grants that organizations are able to apply for, not necessarily agencies. And so given that this is a relatively smaller dollar amount, I'm wondering if that might be a way that we could fund this. And then I was just thinking that I remember that the New York panel that was convened by the governor and the mayor included a really great list of people that we would want to look at. And off the top of my head, I'm thinking specifically of Dan Doctoroff, because I remember that you were basically saying somebody who would have the respect of the governor, the mayor, the business community, understand the sort of land use issues and the complexity of building on the water and all of that. Maybe, that's somebody that would be a good outreach person.
I think it's a great suggestion, but I think we're better off to identify exactly those traits you've just noted. Somebody who has, the knowledge of the city, who's worked for the city for many years, who has knowledge of the waterfront, rather than specific people right now. Because, look, people die, people move, people do different things.
Right.
So the specific individual could be tricky, but rather those skills, whether it's the chair of the Department of City Planning, or someone like Dan Doctoroff, of course, but I just don't know that I would pinpoint one person, probably, because who knows? Somebody earlier said, it was Sarah, we won't even be here. Anyway, Laura.
So I really think we need to take a fresh look at 9A and the infrastructure under it, to Wendy's point about the life cycle of both the street itself and of the DEP sewer there. And I think that that should be one of the jobs of this task force, because the idea that these resiliency projects pick on the parks and don't look at the roads is crazy, and also, there's these new forms of transportation, the e-bikes, the e-scooters, and we need to make room for them. And anyway, I think that has to be a huge part of it, is how can 9A be deployed? That's a huge amount of land, of impervious surface that is really just for cars. And it's just real estate ready. It needs to be used more effectively. So there's that, and maybe we need a transportation planner on this committee. And we definitely need the city and the state working together in a way that they can't just play hot potato with each other. Like, they really need to come to the table together to problem solve.
Excellent. Sarah. And you can answer any of the questions. So we're covering what's to be studied in the task force, recommended membership on the task force, leadership positions, financing, any category you want to jump in on. Wait a minute, excuse me, Lucian, are you taking notes? I am too, but I just want to make Lucian, you're on board there.
Yes. I'm typing.
Okay. Sorry, Sarah.
All right, that's okay. I'm wondering if people from the Hudson River Trust might be important people that are already present. And I'm very concerned about the barge that is shoring up the infrastructure outside of Gateway, and upon which Gateway rests, apparently. Who knew? And the fact that all the way up and down the river, that coastal infrastructure is going to come in and out and in and out, which means that that is also something that needs to be paid for. And I don't see that coming into play a lot in what I read. And yet,
I don't know if, sorry about Sarah, where can you just, because that actually is a great point, which is what geographic area are we talking about that will be covered by this task force? Originally, I thought it was from 59th Street to Chambers Street, but you're saying that this, I don't know about a barge. I'm sorry, I'm not following that particular.
It's okay. Outside of Gateway, there is now a barge because they are fixing the infrastructure underneath us. And
Yeah, they're doing the intake valve, Sarah, which is exactly right. Something that goes for the
Trade Center.
trade center. And there's some inflow and influx that was damaged and clogged up after Sandy, that they got some of it out. They have to get the rest of it out now. So they're going to do with this project until it's cleaned up.
For their air conditioning.
Thank you. But yeah,
There we
sorry, I jumped in to explain.
Okay.
But that is going to recur up and down.
Okay, so you're advocating, it's a very good point. You're advocating for the review to include Battery Park City Authority all the way around. In other words,
around the island at this point, because everywhere there is something extending out into the water on both sides, and on Staten Island and in
Whoa. This is a West Side Resiliency Task Force to look at the areas that the city and state are not currently covering. So the assumption was that Battery Park City Authority would work, of course, as one of the members of this, but that the study would, a lot of people assumed would end, but they would integrate. So I'm hearing something different. So Jeff, why don't you?
Well,
Thanks, Sarah.
yeah, I was, in terms of the geographic coverage, I too was anticipating, essentially Chambers Street north. question whether it needs to go all the way to 59th Street. The resiliency measures stop at about 34th Street, where I guess we reach high ground or something in terms of the need for coastal resiliency.
You're right, I think it's 39th Street, yeah.
But depending on what is done with West Street and the waterfront up until that point, it may very well imply things extending a little bit further north as well. I do think Hudson River Park should be part of it. I mean, after all, this task force, the original West Side Task Force essentially resulted in the creation of Hudson River Park, and so to some extent, there's the successor.
Yeah, let me just, maybe it'll be helpful. I'll just read some of I wrote a little something on the membership, which just was major key stakeholders on the West Side, public sector members, city and state officials from the governor and mayor staffs, commissioners of all agencies involved at federal, city and state level, senior city, state, federal elected congressmen, well, obviously all the federal electeds, MOCEJ, HRPT, Battery Park City Authority, DOT, state DOT, DEC, DEP, United States Army Corps, EDC, representation from CB Community Boards 125, representatives from the real estate industry, any public housing or major tenants associations in the area, boathouse representation, and then select nonprofits from the Hudson River Foundation, Friends Groups, Greenwich Village Historic Preservation Society, Highline, Rebuild by Design, Waterfront Alliance, RPA, Manhattan Borough President's Office, this is not necessarily in the right order, REBNY representation, and I've added transportation.
I mean, are you contemplating members from each of those? We have a task force of 300 people.
No, actually, I think I counted, I was trying to keep it to around 25 with the sense of
Okay.
what came before us.
All right.
But
Okay.
yeah, I think we can, yeah, I think that was,
I think I don't have any issue with any of the. I didn't write them all down. They sounded logical components of a task force. In sort of a more global comment, I think it is important to have representation of the landward population along the area that we're talking about, whether it is residents or business owners or real estate companies. I mean, there's quite a different, I mean, it's quite a range of coastal uses going in a few blocks between Chambers Street and 34th Street. So I think it is important to have some level of representation from that set of stakeholders, whatever that consists of.
would you think it would be something, so maybe to be, I just obviously thought of community board representation, but who, and major, housing and major.
Yeah, and maybe that
transportation, who
covers it
else?
all. Maybe that covers it all,
Well, we have, it's not like we're, finishing writing this right now, but, please send us,
Mhm.
Lucia and I are, obviously work on this together. And Wendy, just keep us abreast of thoughts you have. But that's a very critically important point. I'm just curious from you guys, because there's quite a few from Battery Park City here, how you would see that a task force would work effectively in integrating the authority and what was going on north of it. Like, the idea would be that the studies and all the information that the authority is going to continue to working on their plans. So it isn't as if this task force this is for areas that have no plans. So I guess it seems to you that would be an effective.
Yeah, I mean, I think we also need to sort of keep our eye on the ball in terms of what this task force is dealing with. If unless the climate projections are incorrect, which they could be, but unless they are incorrect, there is a considerable elevation that needs to be achieved from Chambers Street up to the 30s. Army Corps of Engineers has selected sort of the most straightforward and probably the least expensive method of achieving that elevation, which is a wall. If we don't want a wall, there aren't very many other options. Well, there are no other options that don't involve elevation. And the most logical alternatives would basically be a pretty massive infrastructure project to raise West Street or some amount of land alongside of West Street up there. And so what this task force will be grappling with is how to achieve that elevation and preserve a nice park and preserve an integration of the city to the waterfront. So that's fundamentally the problem that they're going to be grappling with, and also not spend, and to do it in a way that can be that can be financed. Now, I have no idea what, we've talked about other infrastructure that kind of needs to be built at the same time, whether it's the new sewers and so forth. If West Street is at the end of its lifespan, although I think we're counting that 50 years, they've been working on it perpetually for the last 50 years, so some of it's pretty new. But I think it's a fair point that there is some additional infrastructure that should be built there anyway, and if combined, such as the combined sewer overflow, and that if you're going to do that along with resiliency, maybe it's not such a big deal to achieve an elevated West Street, a mound of dirt underneath it that raises it sufficient to give resiliency. But we're not raising the inland of Manhattan, so somebody's going to be looking at a hill rather than a wall to achieve the same elevation. And this is what the task force will be
Right,
doing.
well, this is exactly right. Again, we're just looking to sort of get the thing going and hopefully get our electeds to make it happen so that we can have this very discussion. Yeah.
And so in answer to your question, sorry, I got integrating with Battery Park City. It's fundamentally Battery Park City, as the rest of the lower Manhattan resiliency, is achieving that same type of elevation. Yes, there may be a transition between the projects that will differ depending upon what the West Side Task Force comes up with. But if there's a timing change so that the West Side funding doesn't come in for another 20 years, so maybe you do have a wall from Chambers Street until Northmore until that 20 years comes along, when it can be buried along with raising the rest of West Street. But to me, those are details. I don't see that it's difficult to integrate the existing projects with a new project or with a new task force, because obviously they have to integrate or else they don't accomplish their objective.
That's what I assumed. And I think and I did actually consider the geography, and I spoke with Amy Chester at Rebuild by Design. And, and correct me if I'm wrong, Laura, but I think that all of the projects went up to 59th Street, and including Rebuild did a recent study on the west side of Manhattan, and it was called Greening the West Side. And we were given a presentation. I don't know if you recall that, and I can send around the link again. It was really quite good by the students from Syracuse University. And they went from 59th down to Chambers. I think that was somehow, and I can't remember exactly why, but that was sort of cut off. But you're right. Somewhere between 59th and 34th, it's a little bit different.
Well, right, because then the West Side Highway starts to go up. That's where the highway, it's flat until around 58th or 59th, and then it goes, right? The highway slopes up. So
I think for the purpose of a task force, we probably want to keep it in tandem, or keep it with relation to what's been done before, which would be 59th Street, or are we saying something different? And, why would we? I mean, I think, because didn't Rebuild to cover that same ground, or no? We can think about that, but I see some hands raised. So, but go ahead, Laura. Sorry.
No, I think whether Rebuild or did or I don't think we went up that far, but I think it's worth doing because it's it's the same highway at grade all the way to 59th Street. And there's more real estate at stake to make a stronger pitch, right? It's just whatever you do at the lower end, you probably need to continue up. If you're changing the highway configuration to put a berm in the middle or add on to the park to make topography or something, you need to, you don't want to do it halfway. You might as well do the whole thing.
Okay, I see. Thanks for that. And Carrie. Go ahead. Sorry, I see hands.
In terms of membership, I think it would be helpful to bring in a couple other skill sets. One would be sort of a legislative affairs or legal and legislative affairs person to help sort through some of the funding streams and insight into where we might look for support to fund it. So even if we were to achieve a consensus around the type of elevation we wanted to see, if it's not feasible financially, anyway, I would think that would be an important skill set, legal and legislative affairs skill set. And then, I don't know if this is different from membership, but I would think that the task force should sort of engage in some sort of prioritization of these projects so that there's some guidance to our elected officials and others on what compromises we would have to make if we were able to prioritize timing and emphasis of the rollout of all of our resiliency projects. So I just think it's part of the task force plan, not just to think about the elevation change, but also the prioritization of the various aspects of the plan. Maybe that's asking too much, but.
Nope, I'm
two
just
cents.
writing it down. Good idea. Okay, thanks. Justine.
Thanks, Alice. To answer your, I guess, part of your questions or just some comments to make, 59th Street, 34th Street, whatever the, on the top end, whatever the outside groups are doing, I think the task force should address. So that makes sense to me. And I think that what Laura's saying is that whatever the changes are going up makes sense to get it to the point, and they're all the same, because otherwise it's just a mishmash. That's one piece of it. I do think that the Battery Park City Authority has a place as being part of the membership, because they have to integrate into, their plan in the north has to integrate into the rest of the city. I do not think that the project should be, the task force should contemplate getting involved below Chamber Street.
Yeah.
I think that doesn't make any sense at all. So I'm not sure if that was even being put on the table, but I think
No,
Chamber Street to whatever the north is.
That's great. That's really helpful. I just wanted to hear you guys, what you guys.
Yeah, no, that makes, but they certainly should be included and involved. If not, the most important reason to me is that they have gone the farthest with resiliency. So they may be able to offer ideas and suggestions and engineering information. Although I think that what I've learned from this whole process is that the land under each, like as you go wherever you're going to be, the land underneath whatever you're changing kind of dictates what's possible. So it may change block per block.
Right.
I also think that, I think it was Jeff who said it, don't want the Battery Park City Authority's northwest plan to stop until it is integrated, because it may take the city 20, 30, 40 years, which is horrifying, but it may take them that long to connect. And I'd rather have us move forward and do something, and we can talk about it like we did in Battery Park City with the ball fields. They had one plan that was
I
going to be.
remember we're just
this.
talking task force. They're not what it's.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm saying, but this is the task force. This is sort of saying, like, what are the parameters? We can say we do a little bit here, because that'll keep us going and keep it protected. That's my point. But yes, no, I'm aware.
Yeah. Good
And I
point.
think that makes sense. Otherwise, your other considerations, I have no problem with them all. I think they're great. You guys have really put a lot of work into this, so thank you all.
All right, great. Thank you. Lucian.
I just wanted to say, no one's allowed to leave without saying something, because we're currently at quorum. And if we lose a member, we will not have quorum. So no one's allowed to leave, everyone. Sorry.
Okay.
It doesn't count me though, because I can't vote, right?
That's
No,
true,
I'm not counting you. I'm
Justine.
not
It's
counting you. And
not.
Thank you.
Megan, that's Megan Kennedy, right? Is that the Megan that we have here?
And Megan, are you here? Or is it just?
It is.
There you go.
It is. Perfect. Thank you. So we have quorum. No one's allowed to leave. Thank you.
Okay, and Rosa always dutifully goes, you should become a member, Rosa. We need you. Thanks for showing up. Okay,
I can't do 4 committees. That would be
oh,
crazy.
what are you talking about? You have all the time in the world. Busiest person on the board. Thanks for coming. Anybody else have comments about what they'd like to see included? I think we've talked about, what this task force should do and who should be involved. The geography, which is helpful, a little bit of the history. Anything else people want to
Alice,
have added?
we've talked about the north and south extremities of what this
Uh-huh.
task force should include, but we haven't really discussed how far inland um, concerns should lie. And I think that's, depending on what part of the area between Chambers and 59th Street you go, there are some pretty major property holders. I mean, if you include, the Hudson Square, then you're pulling in Trinity, and they could be a very powerful voice if you go inland enough.
It's a
And,
really good point. I never thought of the east west.
They're in the floodplain, right? So if you look at the FEMA risk index, the Hudson Square at Canal Street, that's a low point. So as it floods in there, it doesn't go north as much as it goes south, but they are still in, I forget if it's type A or type B, but if you look at the FEMA floodplain, Trinity is affected.
Well, I mean, we only have to deal with, we don't only have to, but, we can advocate that this task force should be looking, up at the Hudson River Park and, that this area going up to 59th Street. But I guess in terms of the east-west, we're really looking, I hate to be parochial here, but we're sort of looking at the area that is in our community board now. Or are we advocating for Chelsea and, Hudson Yards and, what I mean? I'm not
I don't
sure.
think we have to say about other districts, but I think to kind of go back to what Carrie's saying, if we talk about the different flood zones, and say
Yeah.
that members should be drawn, real estate members should be drawn from within the flood zones along that alignment, that could do well to capture without kind of stepping on the toes of CBs 2 and 4.
I have a clarifying question. When you say real estate interest, do you mean like buildings like BMCC, or do you mean like the builders? Or, what do you mean? Number one, that was my clarifying question.
Property owners mostly. I mean, BMCC, CUNY being a huge one, but there's certainly there's lots of small landlords
That's what I was
all along
thinking.
there, but getting some really big ones, I think, would also serve to create a lot of heft, political, and also they tend to have a lot more specialized people that they could lend to the purposes of doing what others have said about having clever people really look at the finance that they may be able to spare.
And then one more suggestion, Alice.
Okay.
It's a membership is a BID. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, is there another BID besides the Alliance that I'm unaware of?
No, I don't mean for Lower Manhattan.
Inside
in
us,
general.
but Hudson Square has a bid. If we're kind of looking at other districts.
Yeah.
I like Carrie's idea about putting the flood map in our resolution, because the visual of seeing how, if that wall isn't there, how far in it goes and how it wanders in. It's actually interesting to see how far inland it goes and what it touches.
Yeah, that's a good thought. I actually, to Lucian, you could answer that, but we brought that up before. I know I had asked for that. We're going to have visuals before in our resolutions. Is that something that can be easily done in terms of archiving and such, or does that pose a problem? Because I think it's really helpful to have the visual, as Wendy's pointing out.
Carrie pointed it out. I just liked it.
We can do mapping. Mapping we absolutely can make a map, but maps are time consuming. What I could do is I could basically export something from like a existing GIS that overlays. It won't have an exact kind of bespoke quality to it as if we made it in-house, but I might be able to probably have something that we can include
Yeah, and
in the
certainly a
resolution.
link to whatever the flood map is, if
Yeah,
that,
I could
you know,
absolutely link to it. That's easier.
yeah, at the minimum, yeah. Rosa,
Google owns billions of
yeah,
dollars worth of real estate, and they are literally um, on the other side of the West Side Highway for all of their multiple campuses. So, and they could also, beyond their financial considerations, probably add a lot of technological support to
yeah,
the effort.
Tom mentioned
So,
that, yeah, Google.
oh, okay,
Yeah,
and
no,
then
no, it's a great point. I don't know that we could, yeah, I
right,
think
right,
we could, you know, again, identify, yeah, owners who are working in the park,
right,
absolutely, whoever they may be. It's Google today. He also mentioned Durst, the Durst organization,
yes, yes,
long
and then
history
the
in
other
supporting the park. Yeah.
yes, and then the other name I would add to that is maybe if our alphabet soup of agencies is getting too large, we basically reach out to the Public Realm Czar, which their entire job is to coordinate all the different agencies. I don't know if we consider this as a, you know, operational DOT, EDC kind of, yeah, just throwing that out there.
Yeah, and yeah, you know, it reminds me we really need to have her come to the board and introduce herself and define. Yeah, yeah, find out more about what she's doing. It's a really interesting job, big one. I'm sure it's a hard one. Um, for those of you who don't know, the mayor recently appointed Rosa, reminder her name, Ling, Lou.
Yeah, Ting Lu.
Yeah, Ting Liu.
Lou, sorry, Lou, to be this person who interfaces with all city agencies on space, on public space in the city, and trying to make everybody work together happily. Not such an easy job, yeah. But that's a good suggestion. Thanks. Anybody else? Thoughts, comments? Okay, so I think
No,
just,
sorry. I have
yeah, oh,
one
Richard, I'm
more.
sorry.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just raised it. I don't exactly know the answer to this, but what we haven't discussed is the authority of this task force and the degree to which it is just advisory, the degree to which it needs to be adhered to. I think we need to talk something along those lines. Although I'm not sure what the answer is, but we don't want to be in a situation where we put all this effort in and the advisory group comes out with a series of recommendations and they're totally ignored.
Yeah, well, that was what I was mentioning early on when I spoke to Tom Fox about how, you know, how did they succeed? And we talked about governance and, you know, that's what he's stressing that the mayor and governor has to sort of be very much a part of this and empower the group because there also would be the folks that would be involved in the follow through. And yeah, it includes including people that you all are mentioning that are involved in the business community and the real estate community and people who actually have yeah, power for better or worse, you know, because of money and a political position, will be able to help us see this through. I mean, I think that was my takeaway from, you know, Tom Fox's experience in the creation of the earlier task force, which, you know, did seem to work. But I think we should have more. I mean, I'm not sure what else you're, you know, looking
I
to.
mean, it could be something like the proposals need to be brought in front of the city council, or you know, I'm just this is up against the wall, but something that ensures that there's at least a public vote and a public viewing of what's recommended.
Well, that's a different point. Okay, I see what you're saying. Not just to have this be the task force, but to have a citywide accepted public review process, like a ULURP.
Yes, that's where I'm going. That's where I'm going.
Well, that'll really make it hard to have it happen, but okay, yeah.
Possibly.
how do folks feel about that idea? No, I don't know. I'm seeing Ushma, you're making gestures, but no, you're not talking. Okay, and hi there. Oh,
I know that
that's
gesture. Child off screen.
that's a child thing. Okay. Thankfully, I've forgotten that gesture. Um, so yeah, so Richard's suggestion to have the proposal, and I think we could put this, vetted publicly through the city council. Is that what you're suggesting? Or, I mean,
That was one thought, city council. Yeah.
does anyone object to that idea in inclusion to this?
Um, what, what specifically the city council, whatever the recommendations of this task force are? I mean, I didn't follow, Richard, what your suggestion was, I guess. It's a better way to ask the question.
Richard,
It's
can
not,
I
it's not,
take an attempt at rephrasing it in a different way?
okay.
Um,
Please do.
um, I was also hearing that, the executive and legislative leaders should be involved and have their buy-in. So when I was hearing you, I was writing, um, executive and legislative leaders from the city and state uh, should agree to abide by the recommendations of the task force and work to create plans and funding streams to unlock and integrated opportunities between the two. But I know you're looking more at a review, but that was kind of like the initial when you were speaking. I was thinking about if they buy into, they come to a compromise that they're all comfortable with, then the avenues to create those plans and put them into effect may materialize a lot faster, and they may put it through the right scrutiny to do so. Because I don't see any way this happens without changes to city local law, without state law that creates the authority to create funding streams and so on.
So Lucian, I think that does it for me, but could you just read it one more time?
Certainly. Executive and legislative leaders from the city and state should agree to abide by the recommendations of the task force and work to create plans and funding streams to unlock integrated opportunities. And I can also add to create plans, public oversight, and funding streams, or to unlock integrated opportunities, something like that.
Yeah, I think that gives it the kind of teeth that I was thinking about.
Okay.
I have kind of an issue with that. We don't know today who's going to be on that task force. We don't know what compromises the task force is going to come up with. We don't know their own governance. They may govern by majority rule, and it could be a vote of 13 to 12 in favor of some plan that we and most of the residents of Manhattan might hate. And so I mean, first of all, the elected officials are never going to agree to that to begin with, because they are the politically accountable people. And if they think that whatever the recommendation is will not get them reelected, they're certainly not going to support it. But I'm not sure that I would favor blindly agreeing right now that whatever this task force comes up with, I'm going to support. And I don't think anybody else would reasonably agree to that as well. We don't have enough information. So I understand the need to have the desire to have some teeth in it, in the sense that we don't want to go to all this trouble and create a task force, have all these meetings, and then have it be ignored. But to blindly accept whatever they come up with many years from now, perhaps with a 13 to 12 vote, I'm not sure I would phrase it that way. Maybe there's some other way to phrase it.
I think maybe it's maybe better described as, the task force itself is essentially a compromise, and not necessarily a vote. At any point, somebody could say, "I don't like the way this is going." It doesn't have to necessarily conclude, but for everyone to be able to say, we understand what needs to change, what the timelines are that these need to change, and who needs to act. I think is, it doesn't. I guess we don't have to say that they should blindly commit, but there's a certain amount of skin in the game and expectation to act that we should be pushing them towards.
Yeah, maybe there's a way to write that in soft language that's not, you know, blind adherence to what they may do.
Well, don't forget.
Maybe I'm quibbling over words, but you know.
A little bit, just because don't forget that the whole point of the task force is to have the community's input on it, so that some of this would presumably, you know, not everyone is going to agree on everything, but, you know.
No, I understand that. That's the function of the task force, but, and so I'm just trying to avoid a pre-agreement of blind adherence, because we don't know if the task force is going to work. We may not like the task force. We may not like the people that are appointed to it. You know, it may have 2 community people that happen to be real estate developers and nobody from, you know, who knows what it's going to be. So I'm just trying to protect against, you know, kind of giving it more authority than we would want it to have, without so undercutting it that it's a waste of time.
Well, why don't you, if you can come up with something that would make you more comfortable to that point, you know, I Richard, is that something that would be?
No, I take Jeff's point, and I think it's a good one. It's a little hard to come up with the language off the top of my head, but I think we need to find some ground where this has certainly some level of authority without ceding authority away from the ultimate people who are responsible for us, which are our elected officials.
Yeah, I agree with that thought.
I get that. I just don't. Yeah, I don't know how to word it yet, but you know, Jeff's point I think is right. We just have to find some language.
Okay, well, find the language. You have a little time before we go to full board. We can leave that out of tonight's vote. Carrie, and just so you know, folks, I'm always, for better or worse, calling on folks who are on the committee prior to those who aren't, just deference. So thanks. Go ahead, Carrie.
Thanks, I appreciate that. So one thing to maybe do to satisfy both is to say that that the task force shall, you know, it shall present its findings for, you know, multiple workshops or public engagement sessions, and thereafter it is the expectation that the task force, you know, that the elected officials would then move to implement, you know, the post-public engagement, the findings of the task force. So you can build it in that the task force would have at least some modicum of public engagement prior to the elected officials carrying the mantle. Does that make sense?
I mean, I like that.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, I like that.
All right, Carrie, you got it. Write it and send it in. You win. All right, another lawyer.
It's recorded.
That's true. Good point.
But yes, I
Okay.
will.
Yeah, thanks, Carrie.
I got it.
Oh, listen. Okay.
If you've got it, I want to see what he wrote, because I.
Okay.
My,
Well, Justine, for better or worse, you're not on this committee. You can be against it at full board, but
I'm not against it at all. I was going to
okay.
suggest a simpler than what Carrie said, but if you all like Carrie, I was going to say, instead of implement, say review the recommendations of the task force and work to create. So just one change, get rid of implement and say review, which is I think what Richard had said to begin with. But I have to read what Carrie wrote. But yeah, I know it's not my place one way or the other. I don't disagree.
I should bet it is getting close to 8 o'clock.
No, I know. That's fine. I'm hanging out.
Yeah. And I just kind of want the committee to vote on the resolution and vote on it happily, because we don't want to have what happened, you know, a lot of discussion at full board, except from folks that didn't have a chance to look it over. I also want to invite folks. I see there's quite a few attendees, and thank you, attendees. I see some familiar names there for attending. If any of you have anything, just raise your hand and Lucian will call on you. But if not, I think we've got, I think we've covered all the committee members. And thanks very much for those who are coming from outside the committee. I mean, Justine, I can't thank you enough for coming and partaking. Okay, so I think we've got the history. So we have the categories of what the resolution is about. We've discussed we'll look at the whereas clauses as identifying the history, our support on the hats, the Hudson River Park Council's letter that Community Board 1, Community Board 2, and Community Board 4 all, approved in terms of this formation of a task force. This is a more detailed description of what we'd like to see. We also will mention the history of support from Dan Goldman at the public hearing. We'll go over the goals that we've described that I read earlier. We will talk about this governance that Richard has highlighted, that Carrie has and Justine and Jeff have so kindly helped define. We'll look at the question of membership with the folks that everyone has mentioned, in addition to the ones that I had read off. Can be massaged if need be. I read something Community Board 2 wrote about a task force should also be dynamic, allowing for the ability to evolve and bring in additional input and expertise as it moves forward. I'm not sure if we feel that that's something we want or don't want. I'm not sure it's critical, and I'm not sure if it's only a task force that we're trying to time for 1 year, whether we would have a lot of room for additions or deletions of the task force. So I'm not sure I would actually, I'll take that back. I'm not going to add that. I think we've talked about it. I don't know, does anyone have anything else on financing? I mean, I think we're going to look to, I'm not sure exactly where we're going to land with the financing. I mean, are we coming up with an idea how to do this, or do we allow for someone else to consider that? But I guess we could review some of it.
I certainly, I really encourage the committee to positively say something about the financing, because it is such, this is where we're going to need a huge lift from our legislators, and for their lobbying to the president and whomever else has access to these purse strings. So, I think that should absolutely be in there, because they need to know that's a big part of what it's about.
Yeah, I
is to
think it's
deliver the bacon.
yeah, so maybe Lucian, you could help with that as to where we could be trying to access funding for this task force. I mean, the task force is really just looking at the study, right? They're not looking to implement, so it's really not likely. I think Tom also gave a very inexpensive number for what that task force originally in 1986 or whenever it was cost. In terms of whatever costs were associated with it, I don't even know. But I think that's something that I don't have enough information on. I can't certainly be helpful on. I don't know if anyone else can, as to what, where we're looking for financing of the task force planning. I mean, I think it shouldn't be prohibitive. So maybe Lucian, you can help review that and see where that money might come from.
Yes, just right.
And we have the inclusion of a flood map, hopefully, or at least a link to it. And I think that was sort of it. So I'm going to ask.
Did you get, Alice, did you get the earlier point? I think it was Laura who talked about the priorities. Did you include that?
I put down I wasn't, just repeat the point, because I have to make sure that we prioritize certain aspects of all projects. I wasn't sure exactly what we were trying to say there. So maybe somebody, Laura, you could send us the language there, because I'm not 100% sure. Richard, what is the point you're?
I think it was me who said that.
Yeah, I don't think
Maybe
so.
It was me. It was me.
Carrie,
And,
yeah.
and
So-
the idea was for the task force to, if funds are limited and we needed to, I mean, there are going to be compromises that are made, but in looking holistically at Route 9A and the sewers and all of those things, that we would prioritize the efforts, so that if compromises were made, we were on record, or the task force is on record, as to how it would prioritize the rollout of some of those projects.
I guess I didn't, take a lot of notes on that. I mean, I didn't write it down because I don't know if I kept feeling that that's not about what this resolution is. It's with a step into the resolution, in other words, this is about creating a task force, and you're defining what the task force once it's
Right, yeah, so
established.
maybe that's what the norm, that's the governance of the task force, and this is just about the creation of it, so that probably goes further than
I
you
mean, we could
need.
add it. I don't have any objection, but I just wasn't sure. It then opened up other things that we might want to cover in terms of more specific agenda
If
items.
this
I
is,
don't
if
know.
this is geared only to membership formation and authority geography, then
No,
you
that's
don't-
what it would cover. You're
Right.
just sort of giving an order of what I have no objection if no one else has an objection. And Lucian, you want to add that in from your notes?
Yeah,
That's
I noted it. I guess I would be curious how much of the kind of the goals portion, because we did get a couple of design goals insofar as studying unfinished business with the west side, fixing the combined sewer overflow issues,
sewer and drainage.
looking at West Street geometry and subsurface infrastructure, the imperviousness of the of 9A, and who can use it and how can we use more effectively. Transportation planners looking at that, and then finally this most recent point about compromises and if they're necessary, how to prioritize which elements.
Okay, that sounds fine. Does anyone object? No, seems fine. Great.
Good-
See it
good to
thumbs
hear.
up. Good. Thank you, Richard and Carrie. Okay, so anything else that you want to make sure we've covered? And of course, we will look this over at the full board. So you'll have another shot and you'll get sent a copy to respond to as well before that. So I think I'm calling it to a vote here at 8 o'clock exactly. Does somebody want to second that?
I'll second.
Okay, take it away, Lucian. Or I guess I can take it away. All right, anyone need to abstain from this vote? Any recusals? Anyone against this resolution for creating a task force for the West Side? This would require your hand up. No? Okay, I think it has passed unanimously. And I thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for all the great ideas for our next meeting. And I also just want to encourage if people do have ideas for upcoming meetings, and that's also for folks attending from the outside of the committee, to please send them to Lucian and myself. I'd love to hear more ideas for going forward. We're trying desperately to get out from underwater here and talk more about, the carbon, a little bit more carbon solutions and such. And we're just not net zero solutions. We're hoping we'll get to that when DEP issues their new zoning amendment, which is when we'll really dive into that. But that's definitely on our agenda for the coming months. But anything specifically that you want to have covered or discussed, please let us know. It's helpful to hear from you all. Okay, I think that's it. Good night. Thanks so much. And
Right.
see you
Good
soon.
night, all. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Night,
Happy
all.
birthday, Wendy.
Happy
Thank
birthday,
you.
Birthday,
Wendy.
Wendy.
Happy
Goodbye,
birthday,
Wendy.
Wendy.
Happy birthday,
everybody.
Wendy.
Night.
care.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Happy birthday.